Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to a presentation from UF Student Legal Services. This is a brand new presentation today. And just a quick shout out to our good friends at Graduate Family Housing, Jason, Kaila, everybody else. Thank you for letting us present today and for having this workshop as well as legal consults with the students at Graduate Family Housing. I think this has been a wonderful outreach program. All of us at the office have greatly appreciated it, and I think we're going over a year now doing this special project with Graduate Family Housing. So just wanted to thank you again. Um, and today we're going to talk about cyberbullying, cyber harassment, revenge porn, and trolling. And I guess I could also, subtitle this 12 rules for dealing with jerky people, instead of the rules being, stand up straight or be mindful or channel, your inner self. Really what I'm going to be doing is giving you some practical tips, okay, about how to deal with all of this. And unfortunately, during COVID, we've seen a spike in online harassment. And we believe this is due to a number of factors. Could be the close proximity some people find themselves at home, as well as just having more time generally on their hands in front of a computer screen. Students have asked me, do I think that the degree of civility is worn down over the years and, between having, honest discourse with each other? It's a hard question for me to answer, looking at data sets. It does seem to me, at least anecdotally, that people have stronger opinions now. And you know what the hard thing is, and I have to tell my students this, is that they're allowed to have those strong opinions, okay? And we're going to talk today about when they cross certain lines and what to do about it. But I wanted to give another shout out that Sharon Shenderovskiy helped prepare this, and thank you, Sharon, for working with me on this project. We think it's very timely and very needed, and really appreciate all of your support. And thank you for also agreeing to share with your fellow students. Quick disclaimer, the information is not educational in nature, and certainly it's not a substitute for consulting with a student legal services attorney regarding one's case. And if you have any comments, I would just ask that you please hold them for now. You can put in the chat if you'd like, and we can try to address it during the session, or if you can just wait and hold your comments until the end of the session. That would be great, and I'll knock off the recording. We can have a more in-depth discussion, and we can have our private legal consultations as well in the workrooms. Also remember that the information contained is that of U.S. Student Legal Services only, not necessarily reflective of the official policy or position of UF Board of Trustees, Board of Governors for the state or the state of Florida, all the way up the chain of command. The opinions expressed by any participants today are solely their own and not necessarily endorsed by Student Legal Services or the above entities. And we want you to realize every situation is unique, okay? So if you have a specific question today at the end of this presentation, feel free to ask it, okay, to me, and we can talk about it, or go to our website at studentlegalservices.ufl.edu and apply to make an appointment with us. Also, realize that this workshop really provides a best practices guide based on research, student cases, input from students, civil rights organizations, law enforcement, other attorneys. Some of it may be emotionally, intellectually challenging to engage in. And realize that we try to take special care to present all information in a non-judgmental and really a legally neutral, non-controversial format. However, you may find some content and images may be offensive and or upsetting. And if you find this in any way, you're certainly welcome to leave. There is no mandatory attendance requirement. And if you do make comments, we just ask, because after all, this is about online bullying and harassment, please have an atmosphere of mutual respect and sensitivity. Okay. About our offices, just very quickly, we've been in existence since 1977, and I always joke that I have 55,000 bosses. I want to thank all of our students for helping to fund our office since that time. And we were one of the first student legal service programs, grew out of the student civil rights movements of the 60s and 70s. found out it was a very needed service. Now there's over 250 around the world. In terms of our staff, very quickly, John Adcock, our director, Alicia Tabag, associate director, myself and Ray Cawthon, our attorneys, Joy Thomas, administrative assistant. And between the four attorneys here, I think we're coming up on 110 years of experience. And Joy actually brings over 8 years of experience herself to the legal field. Assistance in court representation, our job is to generally keep you out of court. We know court is the last place our students want to be, but we can go with you to court if we have to on landlord-tenant cases, name changes, criminal records for background check purposes, divorces, and step-parent adoptions. We can also handle everything from a simple traffic ticket to consumer matters like defective merchandise, credit cards, consumer debt, if you have any insurance issues. As well as being notaries. We have free notaries here. So you're funding our services, so please make sure that you're using them. If you're interested in student involvement, we have positions ranging from receptionists, and this is really the nuts and bolts. You'll see how an office operates, a law office, to the professional shadowing mentorship program, where you'll be matched with an attorney and you get to shadow real-world cases as they come in. Internships, if you want to do a special project, you can certainly do that, as well as ambassadors. Very important right now in terms of outreach initiatives. Who's eligible? Well, if you're a student taking at least 6 credit hours, almost every student's going to be eligible, and you're paying the activity and service fees as well as registered student organizations. There are some certain limitations, of course, we can't get involved in. This would be conflicts for us. We can't, if we have 2 students that are in a legal dispute, we can't choose one and say they're right and another one is wrong. They're both our clients at any point in time. Claims against the University of Florida, State of Florida, or any of its state agencies, obviously, because we work for the university, and disputes that are under 100 or over 15,000. We're hoping under $100. You probably don't need an attorney. If it goes over 15,000, there are actually some jurisdictional issues that make it difficult for us to represent, and if it's frivolous or without merit. In terms of immigration visas, income tax, personal injury, real estate, we do not do those, but contact us as we have attorneys, local attorneys that have agreed to work with our students for a lower price. Okay, let's get started here. And what I want to do is kind of jump in today with a definition section. Like I said, I'm going to give you some tips here. But first of all, we have to kind of define our terms because you've got to know what we're dealing with. We hear a lot of these terms used interchangeably. Cyberbullying specifically has been defined as willful and repeated harm inflicted through the use of computers, cell phones, and other electronic devices. Okay, and I think we've all seen that. I would guess about 100% of us. Cyber stalking, hopefully less of us have experienced it, but it's the prolonged or repeated use of abusive behaviors online, or what we call a course of conduct, intended to kill, injure, harass, intimidate, or place under surveillance with intent to kill, injure, harass, or intimidate. And remember, it's not kill and injure necessarily, but harass or intimidate is usually what we see for no other legitimate purpose. And it's actually what we call cyber harassment in Florida as opposed to cyber stalking. Hateful speech. Okay, what is that? It's speech that attacks a specific aspect of a person's identity, such as race, ethnicity, gender identity, religion, sexual orientation, disability, etc. Hateful speech online often provokes prejudicial feeling over intellectual arguments. And I've given the source for these definitions. Also, what we call revenge porn is really a term of art. It's non-consensual pornography where the distribution of private, sexually explicit images of individuals without that individual's consent. Okay, that's the main problem. And we'll get into more issues on that. Online sexual harassment, it encompasses a wide range of sexual misconduct, and those who identify as women and or LGBTQIA+ are disproportionately targeted in terms when you look at the percentages. Trolling, as it relates to the internet, and I get to actually use Urban Dictionary. I think it had one of the best working definitions I've seen. I get to quote it online here. As it relates to the internet, it's a deliberate act of making random, unsolicited, and/or controversial comments on various internet forums with the intent to provoke an emotional knee-jerk reaction from unsuspecting readers to engage in a fight or an argument. And I probably should have recognized this, but now I know where it comes from. It's analogous to the fishing technique of trolling, where colorful baits and lures are pulled behind a slow-moving boat, often with multiple fishing lines. So that's where the term comes from, according to UrbanDictionary.com. Let's talk about what protections people have in terms of freedom of speech. And let's be honest, it's a lot, okay? And I know sometimes my students are very upset because they say, I can't believe somebody has the freedom of speech to say that. But hate speech is often protected, okay, unless it goes so far. But we're going to talk about other tips. The critical part of the First Amendment today we're going to take a look at is Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Okay. And what does that mean? Well, that gives an awful lot of variance, as you can see in practical terms, as long as you're not using fighting words, obscenity, harassment, defamation. People have a right to voice their opinions. And sometimes they have very strong opinions, particularly right now. Um, and remember that in the US, hate speech may well be protected by the First Amendment. Under current law, it can only be criminalized if it directly incites imminent criminal activity or consents of specific threats of violence targeted against a person or a group. For example, if somebody is out and saying, I want to get rid of, XYZ group, that can be acceptable. If somebody points and says, I want you to get rid of Layne right now at noon today, unacceptable. That would probably be considered an imminent threat at that point. But remember, speech codes have been struck down in the courts, although institutions like the university and other governmental agencies can regulate time, place, and manner, but not generally the content. There's no legal definition of hate speech. I wish that there was. However, we can say that it's usually a form of expression through which speakers intend to vilify, humiliate, or incite hatred against a group or a class of persons on the basis of race, religion, skin color, sexual identity, gender, ethnicity, disability, or national origin. And Mr. Ward has provided this definition for us. And in fact, when we look at the most commonly reported grounds of hate speech in this chart on the right, we can see exactly that it meets this definition here, unfortunately. How prevalent is it? Very. Okay, and roughly 4 in 10 Americans have personally experienced online harassment. And I'm guessing this may be even higher. This is what the statistics have shown. This was a Pew Research Center survey from 2017. During COVID, one of the reasons we're presenting this is because we've seen a spike in these matters. And it goes from less severe behaviors, when we look at the chart here, everything from offensive name calling and purposeful embarrassment to more severe, including the physical threats, sustained harassment, stalking, and sexual harassment. So when we look at the chart here, the percentages are, I think we would agree, higher than any of us can bear. Cyberbullying. Okay, this is the sending, posting, or sharing of negative, harmful, false, mean content about another person, okay, and typically in some type of electronic forum. And it can tarnish someone's public reputation, reveal their personal information, can be inappropriate in nature. There's so much information on the internet that it can be hard to pick up on if somebody is calling you names or using derogatory information about you. However, you got to remember that once something's out there on the web, it's electronically permanent. How do you deal with these types of people? Okay, we've taken this information from various websites, and you can ignore. Okay, let's go through the various ways of dealing with them. The reason is that studies have shown that most trolls simply want attention, and if you ignore them, they and I put in here they sometimes give up, not always, okay, but it can be an effective tactic. You can block them, okay. You can unfriend or block a troll if it's possible on a particular platform, and certainly we've encouraged and helped and assisted our students to do that. You can report them. Okay, if the threats are of violence or exposing information, you can contact the police, or you can report the troll, the online service, which we'll discuss. I'm going to give you all of those resources. Sometimes discussions work, starting a discussion of the trolling. And I know there was an individual in Time Magazine, forgot his name now, but he actually met one of his trolls. I believe they had lunch together and discussed, and that worked, in his particular case. A lot of us simply, with the anonymity of the internet, don't have that opportunity. It's not like a brother or sister that we've had a falling out with. You can expose them, okay, and because usually they go around in anonymity and they may back off if they're exposed. You can bring an injunction potentially in court if it's bad, or you can simply exit yourself. In other words, remove yourself instead of trying to remove them from the online site. And sometimes we found, and we've counseled our students, that's the easiest thing to do. What can you do here? Okay, if your child or if you're a university student, if you've experienced online hate speech, you can go to this particular site at the University of Florida, umatter.ufl.edu, has resources and links to help you out. And mostly all schools have policies and designated individuals to report to. So that's a great resource. Social media, okay, and you can report it to the relevant providers. And I was going to list the links to all of them here, but actually this site here, internetmatters.org, has a wonderful link on it that gives you the way to contact all the various major providers. I've just put some of them here. If it's bad enough, if the content's sexual, targeted ethnicity, gender, disability, or sexuality, and if threats particularly are being made, consider reporting activity to the police. Paramount goal is to keep you safe. If it's an emergency, call 911. If you're on campus, University Police Department or Victim Services, excellent resources. Off campus, Gainesville Police Department or Alachua Sheriff, and I'll have the links to those later. Okay, we've seen also a spike in what we call sexual cyber harassment or revenge porn, and it can be caused by, unfortunately, sometimes a bad breakup or no breakup at all. There are individuals that will simply share your information. Be very careful who you share information with in this world. And particularly any digital content. What is it? It's the digital sharing of someone else's personally sexually explicit images with their consent, published with no other reason than to cause emotional distress to that person. And you understand the person that they've posted about has the right to retain an expectation of privacy. We all retain that right. And the media published on the internet is able to be reproduced, shared, and viewed indefinitely, which completely obliterates that expectation of privacy. Unfortunately, 47% of Americans were found to be victims of online harassment in a study published recently. What can you do? Okay, there are specific tips. I'm glad to say one of the very powerful devices you have in your hand is what we call a DMCA takedown notice. Okay, and digital millennium. What we're going to talk about is if you own the copyright and the content, in other words, if it's your picture, it's yours, okay, you can send a DMCA takedown notice to the website. And many sites have the DMCA takedown web form available. You just go to their site, look for it, go in their database and turn it in. If not, there's a nice government form right here that has a sample notice on it. You can send it via email or regular mail and just look in their terms of use where to send it. And if you can't find it on their website, there's a database of registered DMCA agents at copyright.gov. If you go to this link here, and if it's not there, then the Who Is database contains ownership contact information for most internet domains, so you can also go there. So the good advice is you can attack it directly at the website. What happens if you're not able to get that website to agree? You have to remember that a lot of websites are operating all over the world, and they may not be subjected to US policy or copyright policy. Okay, so let's talk about specific services. Good news is the major search engines all have links to take down this particular information. So common removal requests, and it goes, you can see here, from non-consensual, explicit or intimate personal images, fake pornography, content on sites with exploitative removal practices, financial or doxing content. Okay, so Google has all of these links available to take down the content. So does Yahoo. Okay, Yahoo does exactly the same. Be aware, and Yahoo puts this on their site, that if you ask them to take down, just to make sure that it's you, they may want a legible copy of your photo ID and the URL where the content is posted. But they also say, don't worry, they have to have this information to verify identity, but then they immediately destroy copies of it to protect your privacy. Microsoft, same thing. We have a non-consensual revenge porn site available for them to take it down, as well as a helpful video that shows you how to do it. Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, Tumblr. I'm just going to include all of these kind of together at this point, because the cybercivilrights.org Institute has been working with all of the major social media and tech companies, and they have a list and link on there, one link after another about how to take them down. So you can actually go to these social media sites directly and take it down. So we have the ways to take it down from the website. We have the takedown notice specifically sent, as well as reaching out to the search engines and to the social media itself. What is cyber harassment or revenge porn in Florida? Very quickly, I'm just going to tell you that it's a first-degree misdemeanor. You can get up to 1 year in jail and up to $1,000 in criminal fines and attorney costs. And 1 in 25 male and female Americans have been threatened or victims of non-consensual image sharing. And we've talked about the most vulnerable populations as well. We also have in Florida video voyeurism, which is a third-degree felony. It was a misdemeanor a few years ago, but the legislature upped it to a felony now, in which you can get not just a year in jail, but up to 5 years in prison on it. And that includes the transfer, dissemination, distribution, intentionally using or installing an imaging device to secretly view, broadcast, or record a person without that person's knowledge and consent, who is dressing, undressing, or privately exposing the body at a place and time when that person has a reasonable expectation of privacy. This includes, of course, restrooms. This can include changing rooms as well, tanning parlors, and gymnasiums, other areas like that. So take control. We want you to turn off the comments on social media if you feel like you need to prevent negative comments. And I will tell you that we actually turn off our comments on these videos. The recording that we're making today is going to be turned off the comments. If somebody has a comment, they can certainly email me directly with it, or our office. They can contact our office, and there's all the contact information on there about it. But because of trolling, we don't have control necessarily over that. You can report and block social media accounts suspected of cyber harassment, and you can report it to law enforcement, the school, trusted people as well. You can advocate for anti-bullying legislation and in community school policies that are certainly anti-bullying, anti-harassment. We, above all, want you to be good citizens. Please promote kindness. Hold others accountable. In terms of resources, the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative is certainly an excellent one to start with. They have a national helpline as well that we've posted here, 24/7 support, the National Domestic Violence Hotline for victims without my consent in revenge porn. And there are many, many others, but we actually use some of these materials, so I wanted to give you these resources as well as many more, from Student Legal Services to the Stop Bullying campaign at the government website, legislative information on here, as well as the criminal statutes for it, and copyright government. Remember, I was telling you how to do those DMCA takedown notices as well on it. So many resources on it. And as promised, I was going to tell you about our community partners. Of course, we work with our colleagues at UF Police Department, Office of Victim Services, very much to make sure that our students are protected. If you have any issues, you can come and see us. You can go see them. And please, I do encourage you to talk to somebody about it. A lot of times when my students, come to see me, they've been, suffering over this, wondering what to do. And like I said, we do have these concrete tips. We're going to be getting them out there. So just know that there are things that you can do, that we can do to assist them as well. Off campus, Alachua County Sheriff's Office, Gainesville Police Department, of course, as well as the Alachua County Crisis Center. There are other resources which I'll post. This is a work in progress as we get them updated. I'll try to put the links in the video description as well. Again, just to bookend it about us, we're in U.S. Student Legal Services at the Rights Union, and you can contact us at 392-5297, studentlegalservices.ufl.edu, or give us an email at sls@ufsa.ufl.edu. And workshop feedback, feel free, and I hope this will come through when we post this as well. Feel free to use that QR code and provide information about this presentation. Was it helpful? Was there ways that we can improve it? Do you know of a resource that we should be listing as well as the ones that we have? I'm happy to include it as well. Realize that our presentations are generally around 30 minutes. We cram all this information in there, try to get it out, try to make sure that it's informative, that it's educational, and that it's most importantly practical news that you can use. But feel free to leave that on there. At this time, I'm going to stop the recording. I want to thank everyone for attending today, and I will get to all of your questions. And just to protect your anonymity, let me stop recording at this point. Again, I want to thank everybody for attending today, and I want to thank Graduate Family Housing for hosting us.